The commemorative Trump dollar coin arriving this fall has a gold-like finish and contains no actual gold, which currently makes it more honest about its contents than several of the budgets moving through Washington this week. I am Lambert Woollingham, and this is the Daily Shear for Thursday, July 16th, 2026, recorded in an Austin heat that has started to smell faintly of asphalt and bad judgment. Somewhere in that heat, a great many expensive decisions got made today, and it fell to me to read them into a microphone. Closer to home, the school district paperwork has once again outpaced the school district's money, and Central Texas's courts and commissioners are left to clean up after it. In Fort Worth, Shama Al-Zubi lasted exactly 4 days as the incoming principal of Western Hills High School before district administrators reassigned her after an online backlash over old social media posts she had made about the Black Lives Matter movement and Sharia law. Rather than accept the demotion, Al-Zubi has filed a federal lawsuit against Fort Worth Independent School District, rejecting the district's alternate offer of a $130,000 principal program administrator role as she put it, a fabricated position invented to keep her out of the building. With the school year bearing down, she has asked a federal judge for a preliminary injunction ordering the district to put her back in the job she originally signed a contract to do. The district has not explained what a principal program administrator actually administers. Travis County commissioners have formally asked state environmental regulators to block a wastewater permit for the proposed White Rocks development near Highway 71, a 71-acre complex that wants to discharge 120,000 gallons of treated sewage a day. That volume is meant to support a 10,000-seat outdoor amphitheater, a hotel, and 600 private residences, which county engineers say is a serious understatement of what the site will actually produce. Officials specifically flagged the proposed sludge treatment plant as a threat to local groundwater. The county's objection puts it formally on the side of the neighborhood groups already fighting the project, though the final call belongs entirely to the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. Austin Independent School District is floating a second act for Martin Middle School months after padlocking the East Austin campus for good. Superintendent Matias Segura says the district hopes to finalize a repurposing plan by October, possibly turning the building into magnet programs or community services, though he was clear it will not reopen as a traditional middle school. The campus opened in 1968 as the district's first fully integrated school before falling enrollment forced its closure this spring, angering families who had treated it as a neighborhood anchor. The district now has to turn empty real estate into something useful without spending money it does not have. 2 resource extraction companies are suing the Neches and Trinity Valleys Groundwater Conservation District in East Texas, alleging the district's freeze on new project permits was designed specifically to isolate and penalize their operations. The moratorium forces the Rural Water Authority to defend itself in court against companies arguing they are being deprived of their property rights under an open-ended regulatory pause. Should the court side with the companies, the district loses its main tool for slowing large-scale groundwater extraction in the aquifer. The case turns a local permitting dispute into a referendum on how much authority a conservation district actually has. Austin Independent School District has finalized $205 million in budget cuts for the coming school year, eliminating more than 500 positions and trimming teacher planning time and bus routes, after earlier deficit projections ballooned to nearly 5 times the original estimate. The board passed a technically balanced $887 million operating budget, but the cuts still degrade basic campus operations and extracurricular programs. The district's reserves now sit at half the level its own policy requires, and administrators have already told the board they will need to find another $60 million in cuts before the 2027-2028 school year. This round, in other words, is the opening phase, not the fix. Turning to the money side of things, the numbers get bigger and the promises get vaguer, starting with a chip maker that keeps finding another $100 billion lying around. Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company has committed another $100 billion to its Arizona operations, bringing its total domestic investment to $265 billion, with Chief Executive Officer C.C. Wei suggesting the money will fund 4 more fabrication plants on top of the 8 already under construction or planned. The expansion follows a 77% jump in the company's second quarter net profit, which hit $22 billion on relentless demand for artificial intelligence hardware. The White House is crediting its tariff threats against Taiwan for the move, though Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company's actual motivation appears to be feeding components to Nvidia and Apple without interruption. Whatever the cause, Arizona is now locked in as the center of the domestic chip industry for the foreseeable future. The owners of Camp Mystic have moved a wrongful death lawsuit out of Texas state court and into federal bankruptcy proceedings, citing the company's ongoing Chapter 11 filing. The suit, brought by 6 families, stems from the July 2025 flash floods that killed 25 campers and 2 counselors at the century-old Hill Country Camp, and the jurisdictional shift automatically cancelled a scheduled status hearing. Attorneys for the families say the camp is exploiting bankruptcy protections specifically to avoid a local jury, and court filings show Camp Mystic intends to pull all 5 active lawsuits, representing 22 sets of plaintiffs, into the same federal framework. The families now face a corporate restructuring process layered on top of a mass casualty case, just to get in front of a judge. SpaceX shares briefly dropped to $132.28 on Wednesday, falling below the $135 initial public offering price barely a month after the company's debut, a 41% slide from its post-listing peak. The company's total market valuation has fallen from $2.6 trillion to roughly $1.78 trillion in a matter of weeks. Analysts point to anxiety over Musk's debt-heavy artificial intelligence expansion and a broader retreat from stretched tech valuations, while early shareholders and employees appear to be racing each other to the exit. All of this is happening before the company has even released its first public earnings report, which is due in August. The Trump administration has imposed a 25% tariff on a range of Brazilian imports, effective July 22nd, following a year-long investigation that concluded Brazil was engaging in unfair trade practices. The move replaces an earlier round of tariffs the Supreme Court had struck down as unconstitutional. Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva's government has formally denied the allegations and condemned the decision. The tariffs raise costs for American importers and squeeze Brazilian exporters, which is the point, since the White House gets fresh leverage over a trading partner it says will not fall in line. Stripe has teamed up with private equity firm Advent International to launch a hostile $53.4 billion bid for PayPal. Backed by roughly $50 billion in bank financing, with ownership to be split evenly between the two firms. Wall Street analysts have already called the offer a lowball, but the scale of it signals a brutal consolidation phase for digital payments. PayPal, which has spent the past year cutting staff and $1.5 billion in costs after a profit warning, would bring 440 million active consumer accounts into a combined company that would dominate online checkout the way few things dominate anything anymore. Whether PayPal's board fights or folds, the fact that this bid exists at all tells you what legacy tech valuations are worth these days. Out past the local school boards and the balance sheets, the rest of the world kept doing what it does, which today mostly meant Congress, missiles, and a coin. An amendment from Republican Representative Thomas Massey to cut $3.3 billion in military aid to Israel failed 104 to 314 on the House floor Wednesday, but 103 Democrats crossed over to support it, an unprecedented break from the party's historic position. The scale of the defection reflects deep discomfort within the party over Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's conduct of the war in Gaza. Democratic leadership remains officially committed to the alliance, but the revolt shows how much pressure lawmakers are under from their own base heading into the November midterms. The funding survives untouched, but the consensus behind it clearly did not. House Republican leadership has unveiled a $95 billion budget resolution meant to fund the escalating war with Iran, with most of the money aimed at rebuilding Pentagon munitions stockpiles, and it includes no offsets to pay for any of it. The same 47-page package also advances the party's domestic voting restrictions, tying war funding to election rules in a single vote. Speaker Mike Johnson is pushing it toward the floor as a defense of national security and election integrity, but the bill faces resistance from fiscal conservatives who object to the deficit spending on principle. Bundling the two issues together forces lawmakers into an all-or-nothing vote just months before they face their own elections. Continuing from where things stood, American airstrikes have now hit targets near Tehran itself, moving past the earlier coastal strikes to hit command centers, missile sites, and air defenses deep inside Iran. The United States military also used Hellfire missiles to disable an unladen oil tanker that tried to run the reinstated American naval blockade in the Strait of Hormuz. Iran retaliated with counterstrikes on American assets in Kuwait and Jordan, and the death toll across the region now stands at least 35, with hundreds wounded. With diplomacy off the table and commercial shipping largely halted, this has stopped looking like a series of strikes and started looking like a war. The New York Times has filed a motion to quash federal subpoenas demanding its journalists identify anonymous sources tied to reporting on security vulnerabilities aboard the president's Qatari-gifted Air Force One, continuing a fight that has now moved into court. Times attorneys are calling the subpoenas abusive, accusing the administration of weaponizing the justice system against reporting it does not like. Federal investigators have separately demanded that officials who flew on the aircraft hand over their personal electronics to help identify the leak. The Times is hoping a judge draws a hard line here, though it is the kind of line that tends to get redrawn. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has confirmed the United States Mint will strike a commemorative $1 coin, featuring President Trump's likeness this fall, part of the nation's 250th anniversary celebration, after clearing approval from a presidentially appointed Fine Arts Commission. It will be the first time a living president has appeared on circulating federal coinage since Calvin Coolidge a century ago, and the administration is getting around the usual ban on living figures through a loophole in the 2020 coin redesign law. The coins have a gold-like finish, but no actual precious metal in them. It is, in a fairly literal sense, the cheapest kind of monument available. That White Rocks wastewater permit keeps nagging at me. mostly the number 120,000 gallons of treated sewage a day, engineered to keep a 10,000-seat amphitheatre, a hotel, and 600 homes running smoothly out past Highway 71. County engineers already think that figure is light, which means somebody is going to be recalculating flow rates in real time on opening night of whatever act is headlining. I keep picturing the sign at the gate, capacity 10,000 plus infrastructure, and wondering at what point the venue starts advertising the treatment plant as an amenity, a sort of backstage tour where you learn where the encore actually goes. Give it a few years and I expect the hotel will offer a spa package that is generously adjacent to the sludge facility. Somewhere in there is a business plan, and somewhere past that is a lawsuit, and Travis County has already filed the first draft of it. PayPal's 440 million consumer accounts are apparently worth $53.4 billion to somebody, which works out to roughly the price of a mid-tier sedan per account, a valuation that says less about PayPal than about what counts as cheap this year. I have read enough treated sewage and untreated diplomacy for one morning, so that is where I will leave it. This has been Lambert. The day has been shorn. Until tomorrow.